Hello, everyone. So this is Lauren Steiner from the Robust Opposition, and I'm on my way to Los Angeles Community College to live stream a press conference. And I'm stuck in LA traffic, so I thought I would just kill some time by opining about Bernie's stent procedure. They quoted some doctor from San Francisco basically saying that it was a procedure and it's more of a nuisance than anything else. Of course, when I started checking around to see what the mainstream corporate media were saying, oh my God, it's like Bernie's having open heart surgery. Even on The View, they asked Hillary Clinton and Chelsea Clinton, and Hillary Clinton said, my thoughts are for a speedy recovery or something like that, but she was not sincere about this. And her daughter even said, oh, it's so smart for Senator Sanders to go in because this could be a warning, portending that there's going to be another incident. And the whole thing was basically to put into question Bernie's health. Depending on how the mainstream media continue to spin this could be really bad for our guy. Because so far we know that he's been in perfect health. He's been totally vigorous. I mean, we see him doing like 4 to 7 events a day. We see him running through airports. We see him walking, quicker than his millennial staffers. I mean, this guy is amazing. Now, here's the thing about heart disease, and one of the reasons I went vegan, although now I'm not going to say I went vegan because I cheat occasionally, and someone said, vegans don't cheat, only people on diets cheat. So then I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm not a vegan because it's not a religion to me. I am on a mostly plant-based diet. And the reason I went on a mostly plant-based diet is I read Dr. Greger's book, How Not to Die, which is where he attributes the 15 main causes of death to plant-based food, and basically has shown that you can reduce these conditions, eliminate these conditions, and even reverse these conditions by switching to a plant-based diet. That's what animal fat does. It clogs the arteries. And, stents are, so simple. It's a procedure. You could be out the same day. So I feel like we should all tell Bernie to go vegan or go to a mostly plant-based diet. I'm sure he's not eating all that healthfully on the campaign trail. Dr. Greger's grandmother, this is how he got into it, Michael Greger, who wrote How Not to Die. His grandmother was 65 years old, and she was on death's door, and the doctor gave her like 2 weeks to live. Well, she went to Nathan Pritikin's clinic, which was, the plant-based diet of the day, and she lived another 30 years. Bernie can live a very long life. I mean, look at Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's like 86. How many times did she get cancer? How many times has she been in the hospital? And she comes back strong and fighting every time. So I think that, we're going to be hearing a lot about Bernie and, his age and his illness, and they're just salivating. The corporate media is just salivating about this, I'm sure, and it's going to be our job to push back wherever we hear this narrative being voiced, whether it's on Facebook or Twitter or in our own conversations that we have with people. Also, while I've got you here, while I've got your attention, I do want to say that I think Bernie needs to, when he comes back, he needs to start establishing differences between himself and Elizabeth Warren. And as you know, I have praised a lot of Elizabeth Warren's record and a lot of her plans, but I've clearly said that even if she gets elected, which I don't think she could, I don't think she could beat Trump, she's not going to be able to get any of these great plans passed because of the fact that her base of support is very different from Bernie's. Bernie, when he calls for a political revolution, he knows that not me, us, it's going to take all of us reaching out to our representatives to get them to support Bernie's programs. And that's what his million volunteers are for. That's what his million donors are going to do. And he's going to be the organizer in chief to get people to contact their representatives, just like he had a rally in the state of Kentucky, to tell Mitch McConnell that he's got to stop obstructing the Democratic agenda, which, by the way, I don't have a lot of hope for Mitch McConnell. We got to get him out of there. I saw a documentary the other night on Frontline called Supreme Revenge, and it was basically about how Mitch McConnell's been waiting for this moment for 30 years, ever since Robert Bork was denied a place on the Supreme Court. It traces the rise of the Federalist Society and how they're getting more and more people into law schools and how they have become the vetters of choice of all court candidates, not just the Supremes. So this is a very right-wing, fundamentalist interpretation of the Constitution. And so that's why, because of Robert Bork, they have completely changed the proceedings. Now the candidates for Supreme Court do not answer the questions honestly. They stonewall. They go on the attack. When Clarence Thomas talked about a high-tech lynching, it's no different from what Brett Kavanaugh did when he was on the stand. And, you know, you saw people, Amy Klobuchar, she's such a fighter. Meanwhile, he asked Amy Klobuchar, did she ever pass out from drinking or something like. He turned the tables on her, and instead of saying I'm asking the questions here, Judge Kavanaugh, she was like, no, I never. Drinking is not a problem for me. Will you please answer the question? I mean, she cowered in the face of his, belligerence. So that right there tells me she's no fighter. Anyway, not that she has a chance. Bernie understands that we have to pressure our representatives, and his base of support are materially affected by the success of his programs. And by that, I mean their lives will be affected by whether they get free college, absolving their student debt, free health care, et cetera, et cetera. And Elizabeth Warren's base, which is more white, more educated, higher income, they're going to go back to brunch. I mean, her base is basically the Hillary base. And even of my friends who used to support Bernie, who are now leaning towards Warren, they are all relatively comfortable. Warren, I do think, has some good plans. I do admire her for her record. I think we cannot be toxic in the way that we attack her. The main thing that we need to talk about with Elizabeth Warren and the difference between her and Bernie is, even if she does get elected, which I think is unlikely, she's not going to be able to get her plans passed. So I don't know how Bernie's going to be able to work this into his stump speech. I know that he doesn't like to make personal attacks against his rivals. He's always calling, Joe Biden is my friend, et cetera, et cetera. But there's got to be a way. So maybe if we can think of some talking points for Bernie where he can say these things. The other thing is they do have differences in policies, specifically relating to the universality of them. Bernie's plans affect everyone. Like when he absolves student debt, it's not just the first 50,000, it's all the student debt. And the reason this is important is universal plans are much less likely to get attacked and recalled by the opposition. Social Security and Medicare, universal. They've been trying to attack that for decades now. I said in my show with Kevin Zeese the other day that that's what Bill Clinton was working on when articles of impeachment were issued and he started the impeachment hearings. He was not convicted, but he was working on that, and thank God he got distracted by that whole scandal. Barack Obama was trying to do that through the Simpson-Bowles Commission, and my thesis is it takes a Democratic president to do the Republican agenda. I mean, you think Bill Clinton, he deregulated media, and thanks to his deregulating media, we have an expansion of Fox News, we have an expansion of Rush Limbaugh, we have Sinclair TV buying up all these stations. And by the way, I have a little nugget on Politico, because I was just researching this, why they're so negative on Bernie. Their owner, who is Robert Albritton, son of Joseph Albritton, who has passed away, owned TV stations, and he just sold most of them to Sinclair TV, which is actually worse than Fox. People are calling it Trump TV. They actually tell their anchors, give them little scripts of what they're supposed to read. They don't cover certain things that would be detrimental to Trump. And so here's a guy who maybe is a Democrat himself, I don't know, but he sold these TV stations to Sinclair TV. And what happened was, after Clinton's deregulation of the media, the Telecommunications Act of 1996, it enabled Clear Channel to buy up 1,000 radio stations, many of them in the South, and put Rush Limbaugh on all of them. So that's one of the reasons why we've got such a hardened right wing. And an article that I posted yesterday by Harold Meyerson in the American Prospect talked about how it's going to be much more difficult to impeach because, and we also talked about this on my show with Kevin, during the Watergate hearings, which is where I got really political, those were televised on every single channel. And we didn't have the internet then. We didn't even have cable TV then. So there was more of a national conversation that was kind of universal. And, the Republicans didn't have their own media, their own echo chamber, and that's what Harold Meyerson was saying. Anyway, so we wish Bernie a speedy recovery. I'm going to be back on in a few minutes, live streaming from Los Angeles Community College, where Alfredo Gama, a Bernie supporter, is on the Los Angeles Community College Board of Trustees, and they are going to be doing a press conference about why is it that community college students are homeless and hungry, and the chancellor is getting he's getting $400,000 a year in salary.